Welcome to the meeting, everyone. My name is Chelsea Bragg. We have people joining as we speak, and we will get started in 5 minutes. Welcome to those of you that just signed in. This is our 1-minute bell. We will start the roadshow in just 60 seconds. I'd like to welcome everyone to this virtual session. My name is Chelsea Bragg, Director of Marketing here at ARCOS, and it is great to see so many people on the line today. I'm really glad that you were able to join us for what I think will be a very unique and interactive experience. I know you all received your care packages, and so I'm sure you'll put the thumbs up and thumbs down to good use today. Typically, we do these mini conferences in the summer and in person. And while we wish we could have kept our schedule, I don't think that I have to tell everyone that COVID put a bit of a damper on everyone's travel and meeting plans this year. Despite that, we are looking forward to seeing everyone's faces and connecting with you all in a new way today. To enjoy this session to its fullest potential, you're going to need three things today. One being a laptop, two, a smartphone, tablet, or a second screen, and then your signs that we mailed to you. If you don't have a second screen, it's totally fine. I just suggest that you have a second tab open if possible. All right, so for Zoom instructions today, for those of you that are new to Zoom, or if you just need a refresher, the mute button and the arrows allow you to turn your microphone on and off. And this is also where you can control your speaker options on your end. The start video button is how you share your webcam. If you click the arrow next to it, you can choose camera options and use a virtual background as well. If you click participants, you can use that to see who is on the call, but also take note of the raise hand button. If you have any questions or if you need to stop to clarify, or if you would like to just simply make a comment, please use that button. You can also change your username by hovering over your name and then clicking the rename button. If everyone could take a moment to please do that right now, actually, and have your first and last name put in there, that allows for everyone on the line to know who's speaking when. The Q&A button on this webinar will be used for technical questions only. In just a second, I'm going to show you the fun tech that we'll be using to make it easier for you guys to interact with one another, and you can submit questions and comments and all that good stuff. At this time, please take a minute to turn your cameras on. We and your fellow peers would love to see your wonderful faces, and this allows for participation with the signs, which I will explain more about in just one moment. All right, so this year, to encourage new ways to interact during these roadshows, we've developed a new software to help determine topics for the roundtable portion and to allow you to comment and ask questions during the session. You can use the QR code on the screen right now on your phone, or on your computer, you can use the website listed here with pound or hashtag 14263 as the meeting ID if you're using a second monitor. This will take you to the live Q&A screen, and you can feel free to submit questions or just comment on the content or to other folks during the presentation. We will make time for a few questions at the end. And if we don't get to them live, no worries, we will follow up via email and make sure that they get answered. If everyone could take a moment to please ensure that they can make Slido work for them right now, that would be great. If you do have any technical issues regarding this, submit the questions through the Zoom platform. Our tech expert, Jonathan, is on the back end, and he is more than happy to help you all. All right, so in addition to Slido, we have sent you some props for the roundtable in order to promote some interaction. Before in the roundtables, after someone had voiced their point of view, we gave the group an opportunity to either agree or disagree, and then they could share why. Rather than having everyone talk at once, because we're all on the computer today, you can use the signs to make the process a little bit more smooth and to help us identify people who would actually like to speak. So we're going to do a quick practice round here. So everyone get their signs ready. And then first question is, Game of Thrones is the best show of all time? Yes or no? You can just use your thumb if you don't have your thing. Oh no, it looks like the thumbs down wins. Paul is going to be upset about this. I see Paul's on the line and he loves Game of Thrones. So does Jenna. All right, so next question. New York style pizza is better than Chicago deep dish. All no's across the board. love it. All right, thanks for your participation. So we will occasionally call on people today if it gets too quiet, so make sure that you're ready. At this time, I'm excited to turn it over to my coworker, Jenna Teeters, Director of Marketing here at ARCOS. Take it away, Jenna.
Thank you, Chelsea. Hi, everyone. So let's get started. I hope everyone's ready. I did want to mention today, first time ever, we do have some folks joining us from Ameren, but they're not allowed to access Zoom. So we are live streaming this roadshow on YouTube Live so that they're able to still participate and listen to best practices. They're going to be submitting their answers, obviously, in a different way through Slido, which Chelsea had just mentioned. So they are joining us today just in a little bit different way. And unfortunately, they can't be on video because they can't use Zoom, but they're incorporated and they're ready to go. I think I haven't gotten any text messages saying that things aren't working. So good. So just so we get to know each other a little bit, if you don't already know each other, we're going to call in each one of you. And if you please just state your name, your title, what you're responsible for, and what ARCOS solutions you use, if any. So if you don't already have your cameras turned on, please turn them on. And I will go through the list here. There are a couple people joining by phone as well. So Stephanie, I will start with you.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Stephanie Mormon. I'm the manager of work management systems for First Energy Utilities. We've been implemented for call out for quite some time, but we are currently getting ready to go live at the end of October with crew manager, resource assist, incident manager. Yeah, I think that's it.
Big undertaking. That's great. Colt, you're up next.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm Colt Bond. I'm the safety manager for McKinsey Electric Cooperative out of Watford City, North Dakota. And this is actually my first ARCOS event. And not that I know of, or we really don't use any of your guys' products at this point. So this is my first time viewing anything from you.
That's great. Well, welcome to the family here. Frederick, you're up next.
We're running fire tests, so if you guys can hear the beep in the background and the nice lady's voice, I apologize. I'll talk quick. Hopefully you can hear me. My name is Frederick Rummery. I'm with Lincoln Electric System. I'm the construction coordinator for our department. So we're in Lincoln, Nebraska, right in the heart of the Midwest, and just excited to meet everyone and find out some new ideas today.
Great, thank you. Brenda, you're up next.
Hi, I'm Brenda Bennett. I'm a business analyst for the work management systems for First Energy. I actually work for Stephanie. And like she said, we've had call out. We're getting ready to start crew manager, incident manager, resource assist light, you name it, and it's on our list. So the next month is going to be rather interesting for us.
Yeah, great. That's awesome. And then David.
Hi, yeah, sorry I'm late. I had some IT issues here trying to work through, but I'm Dave Pond. I'm with UPCO. We're just tipping the iceberg here with ARCOS at our company, and I'm just looking for other ideas that people are using and other things that we could possibly use it for. So right now we're just using it for basic callouts, and based on what I've seen from other folks and what I've heard from a lot of user groups and stuff, there's a whole lot more out there. So just trying to get a handle on what people are using it for and hopefully incorporate some of that at UPCO.
Great. Thanks for joining. And then, as I mentioned, I don't think I missed one on the phone here. If I did, please interrupt me. But as I mentioned, we do have Ameren joining. There's a group of 4 or 5 people from Ameren listening in on YouTube Live. Unfortunately, they can't speak, but they can participate with Slido. So I'll be kind of monitoring that throughout and incorporating their questions or comments there. So thank you all for your introductions. So next we are going to join Slido. So the first thing we're going to do is decide on the topics for the roundtable. So you can use the QR code here on your phone, or the website listed here with the meeting ID 14263. And after you've logged in, please go to the poll section to find the word cloud. So if you haven't done so already, please do that. We'll give everyone a couple minutes. And then, so here's the deal with the word cloud and the poll. If you could please enter 1 to 2 questions or 1 to 2 answers to this question. And after that, you can see other people's answers. And if you like someone else's answer, you can start typing in that answer and it will auto-populate, and then you submit it. So as more answers get resubmit, if you will, the phrase or word will get bigger in the word cloud. So the top 3 biggest words or challenges will be our topics for the roundtable. So I'm gonna exit out of the PowerPoint here and go over to the poll. And if you can just start, entering some of those answers when you get a chance. Again, the ID code is 14263. If you need that one more time, I'll give everyone a couple minutes. There we go. Like it. This is a piece of technology we're testing for our annual conference. So exciting. You all get to be the test subjects here. Check in to make sure Ameren doesn't have any questions. Ameren folks, if you can hear me, feel free to submit questions on the Q&A part of Slido as well, if you have any. Okay. Give everyone just 1 to 2 more minutes. The YouTube Live is on a 10-second lag, so we'll just give them a few extra seconds to submit their answers. Okay. Great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share our top 3 here. And we'll just have a little discussion about this. Oh, I see we've added 2 new people. James, if you could please go off mute and kind of introduce yourself to the group, please. Maybe he's not ready yet. Kyra, I see you're online as well. Would you mind just unmuting and introducing yourself to the group? Maybe. But we'll come back to that.
Can you hear me?
Oh, now I can. Yep, that's great.
Hi, James Ensminger, First Energy.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so top three topics is social distancing, communications, and logistics, right? So some of these are common with the other regions and some of them are not. So this is going to be great. So for each one of these topics, I'm just going to give you another 1 to 2 minutes. And what I would like, if you could think of, is a way your company is managing this successfully, or a process or area of this topic that you're struggling with. And then for those of you with ARCOS solutions, if you could kind of tie in if you're using ARCOS or another technology to manage some of these processes, that would be great. That way the people online who don't have ARCOS or are just using a little piece of it can kind of see how it helps as well. So appreciate that. And I'll just give you another 1 to 2 minutes to think up a couple of items for social distancing first. We'll tackle that one first. And then we'll get started with the roundtable. Okay, and I'm just gonna check in real quick. Great. Amarin, things are working. That's great. And Amarin, if you have any comments here about how Amarin is managing one of these processes well or struggling with, please feel free to submit that on Slido.
Jenna, you want us just to add a response onto that last question under polls?
You know what? You don't have to. I think we'll do it live and we'll talk, and then Amarin's will have to be in that. Now, if you do want to just monitor that, and if Amarin has a question for you, please feel free to answer when you get a chance. Hopefully trying to keep them as engaged and in this process as possible. So that's great. Thank you. So Frederick, I'll just start with you then, if you don't mind.
Yeah, not at all.
Social distancing, what are some things that you've been doing successfully or some challenges you've been having while managing this?
Yeah, I can talk a little more now that I don't have the fire alarm going.
Yeah.
Hopefully, cross our fingers. They're going to be testing all day, so let's hope that we can avoid that.
Yeah.
So we have a full suite of some ARCOS solutions. The two I'll talk about, social distancing that we've used with COVID in mind, especially, is our call out and crew manager. Call out, what we did, we actually have two separate service centers, and we used to just call at will. We just wanted to get resources in here. We didn't care which area you were normally out of. Since COVID has hit, we've actually blocked those out, and we've actually unchained some of our chains. If you're unfamiliar with chaining, I can divulge on that, I guess, let me know. But so we broke them apart. So now we call only in groups. So we have our South crews working with our North crews, for example, and then work groups as well. So we call them in batches. And as they come in, we ensure that they stay in those batches so that we don't have to worry about if one group maybe had an exposure, it's contained to just that group, and we don't lose both service centers, if that makes sense. So portion of it. And then crew manager's really just been an organizational tool for us to really visually see it. We now have the opportunity to see where our crews are at for the day, what resources they have, and it just helps us to ensure that we're doing it properly and keeping people distanced. But yeah, that's the two that I guess I'll speak on, and be happy to answer any questions if there is any.
I do have a question as far as, and thank you for tying all that back with the technology, but as far as best practices go, have you found that pod or batch structure has worked successfully, or have there been challenges with it?
Yeah, I think with anything, initially there was a few challenges just because it kind of disrupted our normal flow. Even before we had call out, that's how we did. We would just go down the list. It didn't matter where you lived, what service center you were out of. We would just wanted to get resources in there. So yeah, with anything, I think mostly just human nature. It was just, it took us X amount of time to get someone called in. If you would have called our crew or this or that, which we were trying to avoid, it would have been taken care of much quicker. But since I think everyone, just with the education portion of it with COVID, I think kind of it's hard for us all to wrap our minds around. So the education portion of it really helped just to explain to people, our employees, why are we doing this? Here's the reasons. And then ever since then, we've had great success. I think that even after this, we're going to continue with it, of having the batches, or the North and South, as we call them, just because it works well. And that way, when our crews come in now, there's no question of what truck am I going to take? Who do I need to call? How am I going to find that information out? You're all in one location now, so you all have that information readily available. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, thank you. Now, everyone on the call today, use your signs. Green, you're using a strategy like this, or red, you're using something different. Greens, I see lots of greens. Okay. Colt, I'm going to call on you. Sorry, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Okay. How is your cooperative managing social distancing?
So like Frederick was talking about, we've instituted kind of a batch system with our line crew in the morning. We have them coming in 3 different groups in 15-minute increments. When they do come in, they're staying, with their assigned group. They get their morning briefing in their assigned group, and then they travel, utilizing the same vehicles every day. If there are instances where they have to get called out after hours, or if a job task requires more people and staff from a different group is closer than another group, they're just maintaining social distancing as best they can, and just maintaining their own vehicles. As far as office staff goes, we've instituted pretty much no meetings. Everything's via Teams or whatever everybody's using, and in-person visits are designated to at the door at the office to the person behind the desk. And if it becomes closer than that, we have masks, but pretty much the same thing as Frederick.
Okay, great. Have you found any significant challenges with social distancing in the field or with field crews?
Not that I'm aware of. I think it's going pretty well. We are, it's tougher in the office when everybody's communicating with everybody to try and get the job done from the office. That's kind of been the part that we've had a little more trouble on, but hopefully it's going to get better as time goes on here.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
David, I'm going to call on you if that's okay. Okay.
I'm sorry. Now can you hear me, Jenna? Yeah.
Yes, I can.
Okay.
I can.
These damn
What are
computers.
some? No, you're fine. What are some processes that you've implemented for social distancing or challenges that you've had?
Well, it's largely similar to what other folks have mentioned. Like Colt, we have staggered lineman start times. Basically, all of the office folk, with the exception of system operating, are working from home. System operating, we've got one primary center in Ishpeming, and then we've instituted a backup center in Marquette. So we work our day shift out of Ishpeming with the operations, and then our night shift in Marquette. Generally speaking, trying to keep people out of buildings. There is some overlap, and largely what other folks have mentioned. If you're, within that CDC recommended 6 foot, you're asked or supposed to wear a mask. So you'll see folks largely avoiding contact with people, or speaking in a big room versus the intimate office setting that we've been used to for the last 25 years. So. It's been a challenge. It's been, we've dodged a few bullets. So we've had a couple illnesses, not in the system operations group, but in the company. And we've been able to work through it, but this is, and I'm sure I echo, what everyone else would say. This is not something that I don't think anybody wants to experience again. This has been kind of miserable.
Yeah, for sure. Stephanie, I will turn it to you. What kind of challenges have you had with social distancing? How have you been managing it with ARCOS or other technology? And how's that helped?
Yeah, so fairly similar, to what some of the others have mentioned. All of our line crews have all been split up, and they're not reporting to the line shops. We've got pods. They've broken every service center down into multiple pods. And the pods are reporting to a substation or directly to a job site and not actually coming into the service center. So we've minimized the amount of interaction. In addition, if we do have to change a pod, take people from one pod and move them to another, just for, job skill, progression, we're testing employees before we do that. So we have a number of testing devices that we've purchased, both the antibody test as well as the PCR test, that we're able to test employees, make sure that they're COVID-free before they go to another pod. For a lot of our, office folks, First Energy obviously is a very large company. We have about 14,000 employees, and every day about 6,000 of them are working remotely through VPN. So we've been, as you see, I'm in my house. I've been here since March. And at this point, our earliest return to work date is January. And I don't really think that's going to stick. I think it's going to get pushed. So we've been very effective working remotely. We've utilized, I think someone mentioned, I think it was Frederick mentioned calling out in pods. We've done that same approach. If we've got a call out opportunity, it goes out to that pod first. And if, that pod has to respond, if they don't, then we move to another pod. We don't mix employees from one pod to another. So the crew would have to be made up of everybody within one pod. If they can't do it, then they stop the call out and move to another pod.
Okay.
To make that work. That way we're sure we're not, mixing people who maybe not have had contact with each other previously.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see once you all implement Crew Manager, if that can help you with the visibility of those pods. And Cole, just to give you some background, and others who don't have Crew Manager here, there are a few. Our crew management tool basically takes your whiteboard and your ops center and it turns it digital, and you're able to drag and drop work orders, drag and drop crews, drag and drop equipment onto those crews. And so you have kind of a bird's eye view. And this is a very simplistic explanation of it, but you have a bird's eye view of where your crews are, what they're doing, what equipment they have with them, so that you can use it. And actually, I was just reading some of Amarin's comments, and they are using that for contact tracing. They were saying they use call out and Crew Manager for contact tracing. So if you have any questions about that, check the Slido, and I'm sure that they're monitoring it. They can answer any questions about that. But they also said, I'm gonna read their feedback here. They've reconfigured their call out process and changed to maintain social distancing. And they've also reassigned show up locations, just like Stephanie, you were mentioning, for their field resources. And it looks like they're also using that pod structure. So that seems to be, just based on the other regions we've seen, that does seem to be a structure that is working for utilities across the country. So it's good to know, right? Just in case for some reason we ever have to go back to this structure. Let's see. I have another couple people here. Brenda, I know you're on Stephanie's team, but just excited to get your take on it. Are there any other challenges regarding social distancing, either in the field or in the office, that you're having?
Not for me, because like Stephanie, I've been working from home since March, and it's more for me right now, it's more of an emotional challenge. I'm really kind of over all of this. I'm ready to be able to go back and see people face to face without having to look at them on a computer screen. But I think it's worked out well for all of us, the programs or the practices that we've instituted. From everything that I've heard from those that I've spoke with out in the field. And I think everyone seems to think that it's been very positive. We've taken something that could have been a real disaster and have tried to turn it into a positive.
Right. That's great. Thank you. Kyra, I'm not sure if you're available, but I know you're listening in. If you might want to just, if you're comfortable, sharing a little bit about how you're managing things. I know you're a cooperative as well, up in New Hampshire, so on the Northeast, a little bit different region. Get your perspective.
Yeah, so we're very similar to everyone that has spoken so far today. We are single person to a truck. So we're doing that. I don't know if anyone else is single person per vehicle, but as this has gone on, what we've found is people are getting lax, right? So they're now coming in the morning, They may not be social distancing like they were prior. We have, as an example, we have a couple apprentice line workers that live together. They drive into work together, but then when they get to work, we make them take their own separate vehicles. So there's been some challenges there that it seems as we move along this path of still having to maintain social distancing, that people are getting lax. So we've started with very recently more communications, but I'm interested to see, I'll ask the group if anyone else has any input of what they're doing to really keep their employees engaged and just see, is anyone doing anything like that for employee engagement, to not let social distancing fall by the wayside?
Feel free to unmute yourself and answer this question.
Yeah, so we're doing, I think I had mentioned that they don't have any meetings aside from Teams or something virtual like that. So we've actually went to a structure for our teams where we'll tell our individuals to bring their chairs, and we'll like a hallway or like a wide open, like our warehouse or something like that. And we'll socially distance and have our 6 feet. And I think it is beneficial because obviously, I mean, just like this, we have virtual meetings in today's age, but there's a lot that we miss out on as well. I think we can all agree to that. So by implementing that back where we can still adhere to social distancing rules, but have that face-to-face, it's been pretty great. And oddly enough, I think mostly for our office staff, because our crews, we understand they're going out there and they have that direction. They have to, you know, they might be in a bucket truck together up in the air. They can't maintain social distance. So they still have that. But that's something that we've done and very recently, and we've actually seen some pretty good success from it.
Thanks. Yeah, we're getting a lot of pushback over only the last month, that we're still making them maintain social distancing. I'm talking field workers only, right? We're making them maintain social distancing at work, but we can't control what they're doing after hours. So they could leave work at 15:30 and go and grab dinner together, not socially distanced. So that's been a very recent challenge for us and a lot of pushback that we've been getting.
Okay. Are other folks on the line? You can use your sign if you want. Green for you're dealing with this as well, or red, you haven't heard that yet, or maybe you're removed from it. I just like to use the signs because they're fun. Green. Thank you. Thanks. So what about work and social distancing? Are your crews, Stephanie, you mentioned your crews are going to the substations or not coming into the service center. How are you distributing those work orders remotely, or how do you do that now? And so a challenge.
Yeah, so First Energy for a while, prior to us moving into ARCOS for call out, we have a automated work management system, where all of our crews have a MDT Tough Book in their trucks, where we're able to electronically dispatch work orders. But we also do have, supervisors who are then visiting and doing the, morning stand-ups at those various, they've each been assigned a pod that they're responsible for. And if there is any, physical job package or forms or anything that need to be brought to the job sites, they are the one conduit between our planners in the shops and then the field crews. I know a number of them, they also have a tough book that has air cards so they can work remote and they don't have to be tied into their office. A number of them, even if it's something that can be printed, they print things at home and then take them to the job site as opposed to going into the office. So they still get things electronically sent to them. But then if there are papers that they have to distribute, the supervisors are the one who does that.
Okay, great. For those of you who may not, obviously First Energy is a very large utility, and I know we also have Ameren, who is large, but then we have some cooperatives on the line here. Are you managing that in the same way, or how do you manage work at your utility? And has that been a challenge to like move that digital or make it less, less in person?
I guess I can speak to that.
Yeah.
We're a smaller cooperative. I think our total staff is around 55 people, including our field personnel. And so we have an online software where they can dispatch work orders and job tickets and stuff like that. So, I mean, even us, that's normally what we did during the day. They still had their briefing in the morning with the major things to accomplish, but things can come up during the day too. We're right in the middle of the oil field in North Dakota. So we have lots of stuff that can pop up at any given minute. So they utilized that quite a bit prior to that. So that was something they were already really familiar with. So I don't think that was too much of a change or a difference that they really had to adjust to. So.
Okay, great. David, I'm gonna call on you if you're available.
Sure, what's up?
How have you had any challenges with social distancing and distributing work to the field?
No, we really haven't. Based on our staggered start times, we've got clerical staff in the virtual world that is basically just emailing jobs back and forth. So we really, we're a 60,000 customer utility with 170 employees. So, we're certainly not an Ameren or a First Energy, so we don't have that kind of volume. But no, we have not had any issues with that.
Okay, great. Good. Anyone else want to talk about either how they're managing work successfully with social distancing or if they're having any challenges? Okay. All right. Well, in the interest of time, let's move on to communications. This is a big one. It's popped up all across the regions as well. I guess my first question to the group is, how are you communicating? Like, what challenges are you having around communicating, be it to across the company for business continuity purposes or field communications or getting communications back from the field? Are you challenged with that during this time? Because a lot of things are changing, in the beginning, almost every day things were changing. Hopefully it's not every day now, but you never know. Does anyone have any good stories about that, or maybe how they've used technology to help with that?
Jenna, this is Steph. I'll speak up on this one. We've, again, with the mobile data terminals and the infrastructure that we have in place, we have utilized what we refer to it as common documents. But it's a network location that we have set up corporately that replicates out to each of the MDTs. And it's a way in which we can share documents. They don't have Outlook email. Our field crews, don't have access to Outlook. So we've had to come up with other ways in which we can get information to them during this time that they're not physically in person. So we've utilized that tool to transfer information. Early on, it was all about, COVID response, the protocols that were being put in place, how to, take their temperature, the things that they needed to do before they reported to work, testing information. If they were going to be tested, where do they report to? What was the process? Things like that. And we've used that all along to keep our field workers engaged and up to date on anything that's going on corporately.
Okay. And how are you managing like blast communications, like to your different crews, if you have an emergency or some change in the plan?
So we don't have anything, we haven't utilized everything to really do that across the board. There are some segments that we have a way to notify electronically
Mhm.
through their application of where they receive their work.
Mhm.
We've talked a lot about using Siren to do some of that,
Yeah.
which I figured is where you're going with that. But the challenge that we have with this, and this has been an issue that I don't really know how to solve just yet. The issue is that in some of our union shops, you know, the phone number that they provide to us is not a mobile phone that they have with them. And
Mhm.
some of the union contracts only allow them to leave one phone number. So they leave their home number. So when it comes to something that we need to get a message out to them quickly, we really want to be able to tag their cell phone, right? And send a message directly to that duty phone or to the phone that they've got on their person. But we've not been successful at doing that across the board. You know, I know there are some pockets that use that, but it's not something that we've been able to institute fully because of the union contractual issues that we're still kind of working through.
Okay. Kyra, I can't remember if this was you or not, so you're gonna have to keep me honest here, but are you using Siren with Crew Manager to do notifications, or was that Chrissy from PG&E?
That was Christy. We are not utilizing.
Okay. We do have a customer, Chrissy, who I think you know, Stephanie. She's using Siren with Crew Manager to blast messages to specific crews. So when you implement Crew Manager, that might be something I can connect you with with her. But there is the possibility to do that. Frederick, how are you managing communications out to the field or internally during this?
Yeah. Yep. And we have Siren. We have not utilized it for any communications to the crews. The major difference that we differ from First Energy is our crews do have Outlook, and more so, I mean, they might check it sporadically as they get on a computer, but our crew leaders do have books that they have with them all the time. So we rely on them heavily to pass anything that they might miss during the day. But our Siren is more, the way we've structured it so far is more for let's say tornado drills. If our crews are out in the field, they might not necessarily know. We have quite a few pop-up storms that it might be blue skies, and within 5 minutes on the west side of town, we know it's coming, so we can notify those in the east. So we have ours more structured towards that. I do like the point that you brought up of doing it through Crew Manager, because so we have all of our crew cards set up as crews, and that would be really interesting if you just had to get something out to that crew. We have extended attributes, to get kind of on a tangent here, but we do have some attributes that state where their work location is through our Crew Manager. So one thing that popped in my head with that is we have sometimes certain areas of town or pockets where there might be an active shooter, there might be just some type of police presence for something. Well, we can do a quick search, see where our crews are at, and maybe just on those crews tell them, hey, stay with your trucks, and more information will come. So that'd be a good opportunity as well. Kind of bring it back. Anything for our COVID response or anything just for communication in general. We have not utilized it just kind of broadly yet. Communication's tough for us because we hear a lot that we're not doing well enough with communication. So we come up with ideas, whether it be a TV on the wall or emails or things like Siren, and then we're bombarding them with stuff, but we're not giving them enough communication. So communication is a very tough topic at LES.
Yeah. Is anyone else struggling with that? Like, what's too much communication? What's not during COVID? Are crews feeling like there's too much? How are you dealing with that? Cole, you have a smaller group, but you said of 55. Have you had challenges with communicating to people across the organization, or how has that happened for you?
No, all of our field crews, each lineman has an iPad. They're able to access work orders on, and those are able to be sent and received from our office. They each have, their phone if they have a question. Other than that, we have radios in all of our trucks we utilized already pretty significantly. So as far as communication from the office to the field, they can get that on their email. So that's not a problem. But a lot of the other stuff, any sort of communication wise, is done mostly by radio. So we haven't had too many issues with that. So.
Okay, great. Thank you. How about James? I know Stephanie already kind of shared a little bit, but we haven't heard from you and your perspective yet on communication and how that's challenging in the field during COVID, maybe how it's changed or any challenges you're having.
No, Stephanie said it, in my opinion, pretty well. We've worked over the past, prior to ARCOS coming in, or working with ARCOS on setting up a communication channel that allows us to get some necessary documents and get some necessary information out to the field as needed. Is there always ways that we could do it better? Probably, but I think that goes back to too much is what's too much and what's not. So I have not seen or heard of communication issues as of yet.
Okay, great. And then I'm just going to throw this to the group. For this topic, what if I haven't touched on some of the challenges? Someone who presented this topic in the word cloud, what kind of challenges are you dealing with? Or maybe you're handling it well. But what kind, I know this was a top challenge. So what am I missing? Like, what is the challenge here that we're talking about in this topic? Let me check the Amarin board here. Okay, well, let's see. I think we can move on to logistics, which we've talked a little bit about with social distancing and communications. But let's talk, we haven't talked too much about emergencies. So handling emergencies and storms and any unplanned event with COVID, the logistics of that, which if I'm understanding this correctly, that's maybe what we were going after here. If we weren't, you can tell me if I've misunderstood. But what has been the biggest challenge with logistics during an unplanned event or an emergency event and COVID at the same time? Frederick?
Yeah, I've got a couple that come to mind. First is really the logistics of the cruise, whether it's planned or unplanned. We have, we take it pretty seriously, like I think every utility does, the COVID. And we've had any exposures, we have those people go home for 2 weeks. And with that, you're kind of upsetting your crews, and we're trying heavily to just have people in the same trucks every day, as Colt mentioned, or just the same crews, these same pods. Well, as soon as 2 of those people or 3 of those people gone, you have to supplement with other crews. You have to, change things around. So the logistics of your crew members actually has been a challenge, because it might change on a daily basis and you might lose someone for 2 weeks. It's made it very, very tough. In my position, that's very hard to coordinate and manage our workflow, because at the same time, you don't really want to, being a publicly owned utility, you don't really want to broadcast that out to your customers when they're asking, why are there delays? What's going on? Why can't we do this? Well, you don't want to tell them that we have 7 individuals home right now for COVID, because then you'll get in the paper pretty quick that COVID is alive and well at LES. But the second one was logistics that we didn't anticipate. It's kind of funny, we've since had to pivot because of it, was when we implemented our call out system, we went from, it might have been 2+ hours before we could get our crews satisfied of what we felt comfortable with during a storm. Well, when we implemented call out, it went so much quicker that we actually were calling in almost all of our resources within a span of 30 to 40 minutes. And what we found was we try to operate off of a 16-hour shift, 16 on, 8 off, and keep rotating that. Well, it kind of just worked itself out before call out, because it took us so long to get crews in here that we had a staggered crews as they came in. We don't anymore. So what we found was we went to the end of those 16 hours and we had no crews left to satisfy the outages. We actually just had a pretty good windstorm last night or 2 nights ago, and we implemented it for the first time and it worked really well, where we didn't call all of our crews in. We just called a crew, waited about 30 minutes, called another crew, and we ended up with 6 or 7 crews, but we just took our time and staggered them as we called them in, because it worked. much more efficiently than what we did when we were on the phone. So that's a fun pivot to see that the system's working to our benefit the way we wanted it to. Logistically, it was a challenge because we now ran ourselves into a corner of having no crews to work the hours.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Is anyone else dealing with those two challenges as far as logistics go? Managing the workflow and tracking quarantine? I'm just curious. We've had a couple of those on the roadshows here.
Yeah, Jenna, this is Dave. We had a pretty significant wind event that ripped through. For those of you that aren't familiar with the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, it's the northern portion of Michigan that borders largely Lake Superior. We had a significant wind event, nothing like Hurricane Delta come through, but through the northern half of the Keweenaw Peninsula is what they call it. If you know where Michigan Tech is, that's where it is. And during that event, we had several close, close calls with COVID folks, where somebody knew someone who was positive and they were around them over the weekend or, things of that sort. So, we have a pretty small crew up there of probably 20 linemen as it is. And we had just about half to almost 3/4 of them out on, basically what we call seclusion. So we were trying to pull crews in from other districts. It was a challenge. And then, having to keep track of the 2-week thing. So not necessarily someone test positive, but they gotta be out for 2 weeks. So when did their clock start? When does it end? It was just, it was kind of a circus, but we got what we needed to do done. It was just, it took a lot more effort on the front end to get folks out and get things restored. So.
Yeah. Kyra, I'm gonna call on you if that's okay. How have you been managing that? Maybe. There.
I mean, for us, it's been fairly easy. We've gotten hit with a lot. It feels like a lot of events. We utilize ARCOS Crew Manager Food and Lodging to manage all of our hotel and meal arrangements. So we do put single people per room, so one person per room. And then for meals, we're trying to avoid allowing folks to sit down at restaurants, and we're doing more to go breakfast, lunch, and dinners, and having them take it back to their hotel room at night, which has worked pretty well. Our biggest challenge is actually with the hotels. So they're not used to single person rooms, and they're not used to the people coming out, taking their stuff, but then they're going back into that same room the next night. So that created a lot of challenges for the hotels because they saw them take their stuff out and hand their keys in like they're trained to do. So then they turn the rooms around, cleaned them, and then gave them to someone else. So that was the messiest part of the whole thing, is actually getting the hotels on board.
Okay.
But from a logistics perspective, related to ARCOS Crew Manager, it's been going very well for us. We assign our hotels and meals and communicate right out from Crew Manager to the individuals.
Great. Thank you. Colt, I'm curious, with a smaller staff, have you had any issues with quarantine tracking, and how are you managing emergencies if you have any portion of your field crews out?
Yeah, so our HR department is in charge of that, and doing a pretty good job of just when they're out, they're out, and then when they come back, we'll know about it. But for the most part, quarantining hasn't really pertained to our field personnel, which has been good. And we've been lucky enough to not have any super severe storms or anything like that come through, knock on wood, but it has been extremely dry. As far as, we haven't had to deal with a lot of these other issues that some of the other people have. So
Okay, great. Thanks. Brenda, if you don't mind, I'll call on you. How have you seen logistics become a challenge during COVID, and how has First Energy dealt with that?
We had an incident probably a month and a half ago over in the Jersey area, and we had about anywhere from, I think it was close to 9,000 resources that were there working that particular event. And as somebody said earlier, I think the challenge was the logistics part as far as housing them and making sure that everyone had individual rooms, as opposed to, we always doubled up everybody before. So I think that was one of the big challenges. And also with the meal planning, they were used to always being able to go in somewhere and sit down and eat, or we would have like a buffet type where they could come in and get their plates. So that was a challenge, making sure that people were getting their meals, but they were more the individual meals, getting that box with everything they needed. I think those have been some of the challenges that we've faced, but we did an excellent job with it this time. Looking forward to doing it in crew manager, that once that goes active for us, I'm looking forward to being able to do it in that way and tracking it. I think it'll be a little bit easier for us than what we faced this time.
Yeah, awesome. So we've heard from other regions that some of the logistics issues, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. I think I've just lost my train of thought. Sorry, I had this idea while you guys were talking. I don't know, I'm gonna come back to that because here I am. Anyways, are there any other like major logistical challenges that have happened while you're trying to manage both? And I just remembered what I was gonna say, so I'm gonna go through that. Is other utilities that we've seen in the regions have said, like, it's really hard right now with all the changes going on and managing all these logistics to keep priority daily planned capital projects on schedule and deal with emergencies and deal with COVID. Do you feel like some of your like more daily planned projects have been delayed because of what's happened this year?
Knock on wood, you probably just jinxed me, but I don't think we've seen any delays. But I can say it's taken a lot more coordination, a lot more attention this year than it has at any other time. It seems that we have all this chaos of COVID and everything taking place of, managing our workforce, and then outside of our own utilities, everyone's managing their own workforces. But surprisingly, somehow, it doesn't seem like it's delayed work. And that's made it very tough because we're shorthanded on resources and personnel, but we still have the same expectation of getting all of this work done. And so that's where I don't think we've, again, knock on wood, that we've had too many bad delays. We have had, it's just taken a lot more coordination, a lot more thinking. And you hit the nail on the head talking about the capital projects. I think it's always a little bit of chaos with maintenance projects, especially when a storm comes through, but the capital, you kind of take pride and you can nail that stuff down on a tight schedule, and that hasn't been the case this year. So yes, there's definitely been some strains.
Yeah, thanks for that. Stephanie, I saw you unmute as well.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think the biggest struggle that we've had, especially with this year, is because there's been so many hurricanes. Obviously we had Tropical Storm Isaias that Brenda mentioned, but we've sent resources, both contractors and our internal resources down south to support Entergy, Alabama Power, CLECO. So for us, the resource challenge has been all of the contractors that we use to get some of that construction work done, particularly in Pennsylvania. they've all been down south working.
Mhm.
So in fact, some of this last event, we had to kind of put the brakes on a little bit because we're going to get into a situation where we're not able to complete the required work that we have to do for those, that work that's got to be done, particularly in our transmission areas within Pennsylvania. So
Okay.
this year has just proved challenging in that fact that there's been so many, all of a sudden in this last month, it seems like there's been so many hurricanes and major events that we've had to ship resources to.
A question for the group here on that note is, do you feel like you're using more contract labor this year because of the deficit in staff, or are you managing that differently than you have in the past? David?
Yeah, I guess I think from an UPCO perspective, we're using a lot less basically because what was just revealed of, a lot of our contractors we've released to go down south and aid in that process. So we've pushed some capital work off, as was alluded to previously, and it's been a I don't want to say disaster, but a challenge, hey, to manage what you've got to get done, what your ratepayers expect you to get done, and maintain continuity of service. But yet you also have some sort of obligation to help out the greater good, i.e. the South that's been getting pummeled by hurricanes and whatnot down there. So
Yeah.
it's a balancing act. I'm not saying we're perfect or we're doing, the best we can at this point, but yes, we've done a lot less.
Okay, interesting. Is there a logistical challenge for this group in knowing where your contractors are, how they're integrated with your crews when they are on site?
Yeah, I'm going to speak up on this one, Jenna. This is something that we currently struggle with, and we're hoping, our first crew manager implementation here at the end of this month is really focused on, events and restoration. But, one of the future items that we'd really like to look into is being able to utilize crew manager to pull that together. Our internal crews and our external crews working on work at the same time. We're really hoping that that's going to provide us that visibility, because that is something that we struggle with right now. And I think that the resource assist implementation along with crew manager are going to give us a better contractor management process. That's something that we do struggle with internally, again, because we're so big and they're all spread out. When there's an event, the first thing we do is we start calling all the OPCOs saying, where are all your contractors? Who do you have on property? Can we use them? We shouldn't have to do that. We should know that. So Brenda's shaking her head because she's in Mount Power down in West Virginia. And she's one of the people who would get that phone call, where are all your contractors and what are they doing? So that's something that we're hoping to put into a phase 2 with our crew manager and resource assist implementation to better tighten up that process.
Great. That's good. And then, as you know, you already obviously know Ronnie, but they do incorporate contractors into their crew manager solution. So at least you have a best practice to go on, which I'm sure you've already talked to her about it a little bit. So before we move on, have I missed any challenges that you really wanted to get out of today?
Hey, Jenna, this is Dave. I apologize. I have to sign off here. I have to go meet our contractor out on site for 2:30. So thank you all for your insights. Looking forward to the other conferences. And if I can do anything for anybody, certainly reach out.
Thanks for participating. I'll send you a follow-up email. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Take care.
Jenna, if I could add something, I think that this has been, and Steph can maybe agree or disagree with me on this, but I think that we faced a logistical nightmare that we never thought we were going to be able to tackle. And that was having 10 operating companies that were going to have to be trained in crew manager and resource assist and incident manager and not be able to do any face-to-face training. So we've had to do everything virtually. And that I do have to, that was a real challenge in the beginning. How are we going to be able to get this done We've got close to 200 people, our resource trackers who are going to be trained, who are going to be trained in crew manager over the next couple of weeks. And being able to get that in a workable group and making sure that people are getting it when you can't see their face.
Yeah.
So I think that's been a real challenge that we've had to face.
Yeah, so we just,
Mhm.
sorry, Jenna, we just finished up our resource tracking and food and lodging training here. And one of our biggest lessons learned and what we did, which we got positive feedback for, is we actually split our training classes and we did like 2-hour blocks 3 days a week for like 2 weeks straight. So like session 1 was, okay, how do I log in and navigate crew manager? And then, you know, our session 2 was like, okay, here's my crew panel, here's my crews, my members, and here's all the badges or information associated. And then, you know, session 3 for us, if you talk about the logistical piece, was, okay, here's my hotels. How do I place availability into ARCOS and book my rooms? And then session 4 was, how do I match my crew members to my hotels? And then our last session was, how do I communicate? So by doing that, what we did is at the beginning of the next session, we actually did a quick overview and we called on people to say, okay, please share your screen and walk us through what we talked about the prior session. And that seemed to help very well. And we were successful in our implementation.
Great. Does anyone else have any tips for rolling out technology during socially distanced pandemic? It doesn't have to be ARCOS if you don't use ARCOS. Does anyone have any other tips and tricks here? This is definitely a challenge, training during a pandemic. Even for us, when we hire new people, you know, throughout this, it's been a challenge to get everyone connected like they used to be, for sure.
Jenna, I guess I'll just go into a little bit more detail about what Brenda was talking about, about how we're planning on doing it and how we're currently doing it. You know, we do a Teams video meeting. We encourage participants to be on screen. We have them share their screens when there's a certain topic or task that we want them to do to help keep them engaged. And we do have a very small class size, you know, I think no more than 14 people. And add on top of that, you know, we're also trying to train our responding partners, so our contractors, you know, to use Resource Assist. So I'm currently going through the exact same exercise with our contractors, trying to train them and give them some hands-on experience with using the responding partner portal of Resource Assist. But the other thing that we've done, and we're getting ready to launch it now, we've recorded a Teams meeting like this, and we're making, and it's a walkthrough of the system, and you know, talk about it on the slide deck and then demo it in the application. And we're videotaped those and recorded the Teams meeting. And we're now creating an externally facing SharePoint site that we can put those training videos on, along with the user guide and all of our instructions. And then we can give access to those responding partners, access to that SharePoint site, so that they can kind of do it on their own and then contact us if there's questions. So that's
great.
2 ways in which we've started working down that path.
Yeah, that's great. It's a whole new world with training, I'm sure, with not being able to be in person. Anyone else? Any tips, tricks for rolling out new technology during a pandemic? Okay. Is there any challenge that I did not cover today that you really want to ask the group, see how they're managing it, or share something that your utility is doing very uniquely during this pandemic? Okay, well, in that case, I'm going to turn it. Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for your participation and, working with us in a digital roundtable as much as possible. I hope you liked it. And I'm going to change back over to Chelsea. She's going to share a couple examples of how other customers are using ARCOS in the field for pandemic response. So I'm just going to change it back over to Chelsea. So thank you so much for participating in this roundtable. We have a couple more things to share before we close down.
Thank you, Jenna, and thanks everyone. This was a really great conversation today. So we did want to share a success story with you all from Grant County Public Utility District. So in March, employees from Grant County Public Utility District, they actually came in contact with a consultant that thought they had coronavirus. And although the test ended up turning to be a false positive, the situation obviously was a huge issue and triggered an order to activate the utilities incident command center. And so we spoke to Darren Bloom, who's their CTO, and he told us, he's like, what's at risk is the availability of people to get the work done and the ability to keep it under change processes. And having been hit early with a COVID-19 threat, like early on in March, they were improvising and learning new protocols, and they wanted to share with other utilities because they thought that it could help some of their fellow peers. So Grant County had recently deployed the ARCOS mobile workbench product, and they were able to enable crews to accept trouble ticket work in their mobile devices while they were in the field. The system replaced the utility's old fax-based system, which previously required crews to come into the service center to pick up work orders. The COVID-19 threat they had, this required like a rapid expansion to assign all types of work to all types of field employees electronically. So since their expansion of mobile workbench, supervisors, customer service, and dispatch can now create tickets and have them sent directly to selected crews in the field based on availability, proximity, skill sets, and also readiness. Crews can then update the tickets and mark completion with any notes to ensure the job status is immediately updated, both the home office and the field crews in real time. And this also has allowed for crews that are in the field to accept the next assignment much quicker than they previously would have been able to. This is just one example of how a customer is using ARCOS, and some of you shared today how you're using ARCOS to help manage their pandemic response. If you're interested in learning more, or if you want to do a little more digging after today, feel free to reach out to us, or you can visit our COVID response page, which is on our website. And with that being said, we're going to round out the session with some Q&A and a couple of exciting updates before we go. Like Jenna said, this has been a great afternoon filled with really good conversation, and we really appreciate everyone's participation. We were able to cover some top challenges, how peers in your region are handling pandemic response, and then see an example of how a utility outside of your region has been managing COVID while still keeping the lights on. So for folks on the line, ARCOS wise, can you please unmute yourself so that you're available to answer any questions should they come up? And at this time, we will open up the floor to everyone. This could be questions you have about our solutions. This could be questions you have for your fellow peers, any of the above. And Jenna, if you wouldn't mind checking Slido and then see if Amron has any as well.
They have about a 10-second lag, so we'll just wait a few seconds here, make sure they don't have any additional questions. Kyra, I do have a message from Amron for you. Michelle Laban wanted to know if she could have your your new contact information. So if you don't mind, I'll send that to her. If you mind, you can just let me know.
I don't care.
Okay.
Send it over.
All right, thanks.
Actually, I have her email. I'll send her a note.
Okay, great.
Right now.
Thank you.
All right. If we don't have any more questions before you go, we do have an exciting update about our ARCOS conference. So I will hand it back over to Jenna so she can chat with you all about that.
Okay, so for those of you who have experienced it or may not have, we have an annual conference that's like a very much more in-person, normally multi-day version of this. So it's a lot of networking, a lot of best practices. We cover obviously a lot more topics than we could today in an hour and a half. But for right now, it is we're doing a hybrid event. So for those of you who are comfortable traveling or able to, we are doing an in-person event in Florida at this time. And we'll also have a virtual attendee path as well, so that if you're still on travel restrictions or you're not comfortable traveling or for whatever reason, you can join virtually. The one thing about this is obviously we are working with the hotel to make things as safe as possible. Much of it will be outdoors, hopefully, because it's Florida in March, so we can socially distance everyone as much as possible. If there is a surge in cases or something happens or travel restrictions aren't lifted for anyone at that point in time, even for driving, then we will move to 100% virtual. We have an emergency plan in place for that. So we will be having a full version of the conference either way this year. So either hybrid or fully virtual. We have been working with the steering committee, of which actually Stephanie and Kyra today are both on the steering committee for the conference. We met with them, we got feedback from them, and we're just waiting to see what happens with the travel restrictions. That's kind of the big thing right now, but we are having it either way. And for those of you, this says registration opens October 15th. We are going to delay it by another 2 weeks. We are making sure that we have all of our technology in place to be able to accommodate both types of registrations and both types of events. So we are probably pushing that to the end of October as of today, actually, as of this morning, working with our technology vendor for that. We're making sure we have everything in place so it's easy to switch should we need to switch to a fully virtual platform. Also, if you registered for the conference last year, didn't get to go and got a deferred pass, you'll get the code before registration opens up and you can use it for either type of registration. So thank you for your patience on that. It is a little bit more delayed than we would normally do it this year, but we're trying to make sure we have everything in place so that it's smooth no matter what version happens in 2021. Hopefully the in-person, because I'd love to get some sunshine. And lastly, just thank you for your participation in these. This is a new format for us for the Roadshows. We normally do them in person and have fun networking events afterwards. And we appreciate you using the signs and dealing with all of our silly memes and signs, and then also participating in the new technology test that we're using with Slido for some of the interactive elements for the conference in 2021. So as always, we appreciate your expertise and guidance. I'm speaking for, I think, my team when I say that we learn a lot when we hear you just talk about your challenges and how you're overcoming them. And hopefully today was at least a small way to share best practices with each other. So thank you. And if you want to see anything else or you're curious about how someone else is doing something, just let us know. We'll get you connected with the right person, to show you that. So appreciate all of your time today, and looks like we're done 11 minutes early. So you can have 11 minutes back in your day here. There you go. Thanks, Frederick. And yeah, I hope you have a great day and stay safe.
Thank you. Same to all of you. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Take care. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.